Have you ever wondered how love can twist into pure evil? What happens when two ordinary people find pleasure in pain? Before we begin this chilling journey into the dark world of Rosemary West, make sure you hit that subscribe button to the Black Widow Files, because tonight we uncover one of Britain's most horrifying love stories. A love story built on torture, control, and death. The beginning of darkness. It all began in the English town of Devon, 1953. Rosemary Letts was born into a home filled with chaos and abuse. Her father, a violent man with a controlling nature, and her mother, suffering from mental health struggles. Together, they created the perfect storm. By the time Rosemary was a teenager, the line between love and cruelty had already blurred in her mind. She learned early that dominance and submission were two sides of the same coin. And then came Fred West, a man as broken, as dark, and as dangerous as she was. When Rosemary met Fred in 1969, she was only 15. Fred was 12 years older, a man already known for violent behavior, a man who had been accused of sexual assault, and one who hid a disturbing fascination with control. Their meeting wasn't fate. It was a collision of two twisted souls. Together, they didn't just fall in love. They fell into madness. Love turned to horror Fred, and Rosemary's relationship quickly became something unrecognizable. While most couples built homes of comfort, they built walls that hid screams. Their home at 25 Cromwell Street, Gloucester, would later be called the House of Horrors. In the beginning, Fred manipulated Rosemary, but it didn't take long before she became his equal, and eventually, his partner in cruelty. They shared a sick desire for power, a pleasure found in the suffering of others. Their victims were often young women, runaways, lodgers, even their own family members. Some came looking for shelter. What they found was a nightmare. Once inside, there was no escape. The walls of Cromwell Street were thick, the basement soundproof, and the screams of their victims were swallowed by the darkness. The victims who never escaped. Among their first victims was Charmaine, Fred's daughter from a previous relationship. She was just 8 years old. When Fred was in prison, Rosemary took charge. And what she did to that innocent child was beyond cruelty. Neighbors recalled hearing muffled cries, but Rosemary always smiled, calm, collected, as if nothing had ever happened. When Fred was released, he helped bury the body under the floorboards. Together, they became unstoppable. Over the next 2 decades, they lured women with kindness, with offers of work, or a place to stay. They gained trust, and then they destroyed it. Victims were tortured, assaulted, and killed. Their remains were hidden within the walls, under the garden, and beneath the very floors they walked on daily. To outsiders, the Wests were just another couple. Eccentric, maybe, but harmless. No one could imagine the evil that lived inside that house. A house built on secrets Rosemary wasn't the submissive wife society imagined her to be. She was dominant, commanding, and often the one who initiated the violence. She enjoyed it, and witnesses later revealed she would even smile during the assaults. Fred once described her as his perfect partner. Together, they filmed their crimes, keeping horrifying trophies as reminders of what they'd done. Their home became a chamber of death. Yet to the neighbors, Rosemary was a friendly woman who babysat children and hosted small gatherings. It was this duality, the sweet face hiding the demon within, that made her even more terrifying. The web unravels. For years, their crimes went unnoticed. Victims were often vulnerable. No family, no one to report them missing. But evil doesn't stay buried forever. In 1992, one of their daughters, Heather West, vanished. Fred and Rosemary told people she had gone to work at a holiday camp. But when her siblings spoke to teachers about family abuse, the authorities finally began to listen. Soon, police began digging at 25 Cromwell Street. What they uncovered would shake Britain to its core. Unearthing the truth one by one, bodies were found. 10 in total, some dismembered, others buried in concrete. Among them was Heather, their own daughter. The community that once waved to the Wests in the street now stood in disbelief as the truth surfaced. Fred and Rosemary were arrested. Fred, unable to face justice, took his own life in prison in 1995. But Rosemary, she sat in silence, her expression cold, unflinching, as the court detailed her crimes. The trial. During the trial, Rosemary West showed no remorse. She denied everything, claiming Fred was the mastermind and she was a victim too. But the evidence told a different story. Witnesses described her sadistic pleasure, her control over Fred, and her direct involvement in every act of brutality. The judge called her crimes truly appalling. In November 1995, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with no chance of release. Even in court, she remained emotionless. The same calm face that neighbors once found comforting was now the mask of a killer. The mind behind the monster. What makes Rosemary West truly terrifying is not just what she did, but how she lived afterward. She lived years pretending to be normal, smiling in public, while the remains of her victims lay hidden beneath her home. Psychologists later studied her case. Many believe she was driven by a need for dominance, a hunger for control rooted in her abusive childhood. But others argue she was born with darkness in her soul, and Fred only unleashed what was already there. Life behind bars. Today, Rosemary West sits in prison, one of the most infamous women in British history. She rarely speaks, and when she does, it's often to deny her guilt. She has no contact with her surviving children, and her name remains a symbol of evil, a reminder of how far human cruelty can go when love becomes obsession, and trust becomes torture. The chilling Legacy 25 Cromwell Street was demolished, erased from Gloucester's map. But no bulldozer can erase the horror that lived within its walls. Even years later, people avoid walking past that ground. Locals still whisper about the screams that were never heard and the lives that ended in silence. Rosemary West will die in prison, but her story remains a warning. A warning that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they live in plain sight. Sometimes they smile at you while planning your end. Evil doesn't always come in the form of a stranger. Sometimes it's the person you trust the most. And in the case of Rosemary West, love itself became the weapon. If you found this story chilling, make sure you subscribe to the Black Widow Files, where we uncover the darkest minds and the deadliest secrets hidden behind closed doors. Because what's coming next is even darker.